this lesson, I want to introduce you to something else that the EV3 robots can do called data logging. This feature is only available in the educational software, so if you have the home software, you won't be able to try this out. Data logging allows you to collect and record a series of measurements made by your robot's sensors and then manipulate the data inside of the EV3 software or export those measurements to a spreadsheet where you can do whatever you like with them. In this lesson, I'm going to record measurements from my ultrasonic sensor and my color sensor. Data logging isn't really programming, but it is a cool way to collect data using your EV3 that you may want to try using in your classroom. I'm just going to give you a taste of data logging here so you can get a feel for how it works. There's a lot more to data logging than I'm going to cover here, but this lesson will show you how to do some basic data logging experiments with your students. If you're interested in learning more, there are several lessons in the EV3 Robot Educator about data logging. To start out with, I've plugged my color sensor into port 3 and my ultrasonic sensor into port 4, and I've connected my EV3 to my computer using the USB cable. Okay, we're going to start this up a little bit differently than we do our normal programs. I'm going to go to the File menu and say New Project, but instead of writing a program, I'm doing a new experiment. Now, when you start a new experiment, usually the system puts you directly into oscilloscope mode, and you can see, let me close out the content editor, we've got these lines moving along the screen, right? And let's talk about these lines for a second. Now, I told you that I had my ultrasonic sensor, let me scroll down here, my ultrasonic sensor and my color sensor plugged in. My color sensor right now is set to report ambient light intensity. That sounds good to me, how bright it is in the room. My ultrasonic sensor is set to report distance in centimeters. If we scroll along a little bit on this toolbar, you can see that the color sensor is graphing in brown, so there's my color sensor. The ultrasonic sensor is in yellow. I don't know if you can see that yellow, so I'm just going to change the color. Let me change that. Let's see if I make it red. Is that more visible? Yeah, so hopefully that's more visible on the screen. So I've got the brown is my color sensor measuring ambient light intensity. The the red is my distance in centimeters for my ultrasonic sensor. And then there's two more down here that are kind of interesting. We've got motor rotation, and it's the motor plugged into port B and the motor plugged into port C, and it's telling it in degrees. And it's interesting because the Lego robots actually report the rotation of the motors. You can see as I kind of nudge the robot around on my lap a little bit, some stuff is changing. I'll show you that in a minute. But let me just change, since both of these right now are defaulting to purple and I want something different. Let's see, we've got brown, red, purple, and let's make this last one green and see if that shows up. There we go. So I've got, let's see, way up at the top, I've got my purple, I guess. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, let me hold up my robot for you, and let's start by looking at the ultrasonic sensor, which is reporting in red, right? And right now you can see it's right at the top because I'm not pointing at anything in particular. But if I move my hand in front of the sensor, now you can see the red line is moving up and down a bit, right? And eventually it doesn't see my hand. I kind of pull my hand in again. Similarly with the color sensor, oops, if I look at which color is color sensor? Color sensor is the brown, right? Right now, if I don't move it, it's a pretty consistent brightness. But if I cover it up, right? Now it doesn't see any light or very little light. If I move my hand a little bit away, I can kind of let it see some light in the studio, or not much, and make that line move around a bit. And then down at the bottom here, we've got, I think I just nudged a motor. We've got the motor rotation. And if I take the motor that is plugged into port C and start rotating it, I'm just going to rotate it a little bit. The motor part plugged into port C is green, and you can see now I'm rotating it back the other way, right? And it's kind of going down, and I can wiggle it back and forth, and you'll see it go up and down. And similarly, we can do that with the other motor. So now we're doing it with the purple line, right? So oscilloscope mode is kind of cool. Oscilloscope mode's a lot of fun. But in the next section, we'll learn a little bit about collecting data, and that's much more useful.